Hi everyone, Dan Ward here from Ochiko Bushcraft. Well, a while back I did my very first episode of Bushcraft Basics, and I taught you guys how to use a ferro rod, different ways to use one, different types of tinders, different types of ferro rods. I covered that subject pretty in depth. So for my next segment on Bushcraft Basics, I decided to move to actual setting up of a fire. Now I'm sure just about everyone has gone into a campsite and seen where people have set up a fire pit that is just a circle of rocks with their fire in the middle. That is the way you definitely do not want to do a fire in bushcraft. A couple problems with that. One, your heat goes in every direction. Your rocks are in a circle, they heat up, but they just throw the heat all around rather than just concentrate it all back towards you. And if you're trying to get warm or dry out, you want as much heat as possible coming back towards you. Second, the wind. As the wind shifts, it just automatically takes the smoke in every direction with it. And the third thing is it doesn't give you a good bed of coals. So I'm going to show you guys how to make a reflective fire, show you some of the places I've gathered tinder out here, and get a fire going. So you can use a digging stick or a rock, or even your hands if the ground is soft enough. I always carry a small folding shovel on the side of my pack. This happens to be a Schrade, which has a sharpened edge, so that it's also good for chopping. And so the first thing you want to do after you find a location, and be sure and check wind direction when you're finding the location. Right now the wind is coming from behind me, so it's going to blow my smoke up the hill away from me, and I'm not going to have it blowing back in my face. Right here directly behind the phone is a log, and I'm actually going to sit on this log and enjoy my getting warm in front of this fire. It's chilly out here right now. Gonna have lunch here. So anyway, the first thing I want to do is I want to dig out a depression, and it doesn't need to be any bigger than the size of a dinner plate, a 12-inch depression. So I've got someone else out here with me. I might make this a little bigger so it throws a little more heat for two people, but I've already marked my spot that I want my fire. So I'm going to dig out a dish-shaped depression. And okay, that right there is big enough. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to dig it down around towards the middle so that my sides slope down towards the middle just a little bit. Okay. And what I've done, there we go. So I now have a dish here, and all the sides slope down towards the middle. So that's going to create for me a real nice bed of coals as my fire burns. The coals will all move down towards the middle and they'll build up. So even if my fire burns down and I go for a walk and I want to come back and get it going again, I'm going to have a nice bed of coals laid in here that I can blow back into flames. So let's go ahead and put up a reflective fire. Now, before I ever started this project, I walked around the area and gathered up quite a few rocks, different sizes, some small, some big, and I gathered them from higher ground. There's a creek maybe 50-60 yards down the hill behind me. Never ever gather your rocks from a creek. They can get hot and they can explode from the moisture in them. You want to gather all of your rocks for reflective fire from higher ground. So, okay, I've got a nice big one here. I'm going to try to use it for my back end. Okay, just like that. Nice. And basically what you want to do when you're making this is you're making it kind of a horseshoe shape. I'm going to have my tallest part of the wall in the back here with sides that are sloping down and towards me. And what that's going to do is it's going to take all the heat from this fire and it's going to reflect it back at me. It's also going to act as a chimney, and the smoke is going to come right up these rocks and away from me. So again, you want your back wall to be the tallest, with some side walls that slope down towards you. And you know, you can make these with small stones. You just have to spend more time, you know, stacking them up. I always like to look for some bigger flat ones. Okay, a couple more in the back here. And I think we'll have it good enough. Okay, so as I said, I got my dish made in the middle here. As my fire burns, all my coals are going to build up into a nice coal bed in the middle. I've got a taller wall in the back. I'm going to be sitting right here. That's going to reflect the heat towards me. I got sides that's also going to reflect the heat in, and it's all going to come back towards me. And this is going to act like a chimney, and the smoke's going to go right up the back here. Now that I've got this made, you do not want to take your tinder and put it on wet ground. As soon as you take something like dryer lint or jute twine, small dry grasses, moss, whatever you're going to use for tinder, and you set it on wet ground, it immediately starts drawing the moisture up into that tinder. So I pulled a piece of bark off of this log behind me, and I'm going to build my fire on top of this. That way it cannot absorb any moisture into the tinder. I'll set that right down here. Okay. By the way, Nate from Preparation 101's out here doing a video. That was his dog that's just wandered over to my camp to see what I'm doing. But anyway, I gathered up a real nice bundle of twigs, fir needles, pine needles, dry moss. There's some really fine twigs in here. There's some bigger twigs in here. I'm about to put some pitch in here that I pulled off the side of a tree. And basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these and I'm going to break it in half so I've got a pyramid. And I'm going to light my fire underneath, and it's going to burn right up through here and catch hold really well. Okay, got myself a nice little pyramid. Something else I found that I'm going to use on the side of a tree where some limbs had been broken off were these great big globs of pitch. And I cut off a couple of these with my knife, and I'm going to put them up under here. When the flame gets hold of these, they are just going to sit there and burn and sizzle and get everything else hot and everything else burning really, really well. Okay. All right, and I have dry wood all behind, around me and behind me. There's branches sticking up on this log I'm going to break off. There's some in the tree that I'm going to break off, so most of them are, you know, anywhere from this size on up. So I've got plenty of bigger stuff to get this going, and then after that there's even bigger stuff that is on the ground that I can use, because by then I'll have enough coals and enough heat where even the stuff off the ground will start burning. Initially though, everything that I've got right here in this bundle and the branches I'm going to start here, nothing has touched the ground. Everything has come off of the underside of trees where it's nice and dry. So you guys have already seen me do the ferro rod, and for that reason I'm going to do this fire a little different. I have UCO windproof, waterproof matches. They're called storm matches, stormproof matches, and they have a burn time of about 15 seconds. As I said, I've got moss, pine needles, kindling, and now some pitch all mixed up in here. And I'm going to see if I can't just take one of these matches, shove it up underneath here without adding any special tinder. I have dryer lint and some dry grasses and things, but I think I can go ahead and get this going just the way I've got it. So I'm going to give it a shot, see what happens. Boy. There we go. My striker's getting wore out. There we go. Taken right off. By the way, these come with extra strikers on the side. You can see mine's pretty well worn out, and that's why I was having some trouble lighting. I think there's two extra ones that come with the case and with the matches, and I'll change that out later. I actually didn't realize that it was getting that worn. But as you can see, you know, I just single match, windproof, waterproof, because it gives you about 15 seconds burn time. Shoved it up underneath here, and things are starting to burn. I'll put some more up on top here, kind of move things around. There we go. Okay, that is going to burn nicely. As I said, I've got a bunch of bigger twigs behind me. Oops. Little mishap there. Didn't mean to drop you guys. Anyway, I'll throw some of these twigs on here, get it going really good. I wanted to walk up the hill anyway and show you guys some of the tinder sources that I found, so you also have an idea of where to look. Okay. Anyway, so I got the fire going really good. Got some few bigger twigs laying on there, and this whole log behind me has some. There's some hanging from the tree behind me, and there's quite a bit around. But I want to show you guys, take you for a little walk here, and show you what I used to get that fire going, so when you're out you can look for the same thing. and it has been cold and damp out here, and we have had some rains. We just had a little bit of rain yesterday. So if you get up underneath some big trees like this and can find a bunch of dead limbs like these here, have moss hanging on them. These things are dry, really dry. They have been not laying on the ground, soaking up any moisture. And if you listen, they snap. That's the sound you want to hear. You want to hear that snapping. That means everything's dry. If you bend that over and that does not snap, then it's not dry. So you want to hear that dry snapping sound. Now, all that small kindling and stuff I used, I just reached up behind me into these dead limbs and just started breaking off big handfuls. Carried back 3 big handfuls back to camp. And you saw me, I broke everything in half, doubled it over, put my match up underneath. Other thing to look for, besides your dry limbs up underneath here and dry branches, bigger stuff, this would pop right off. Other thing to look for, right here is a treasure. This branch is completely covered with pitch. Another one here. I took my knife earlier and cut big globs of pitch off this pine tree right here, and that's what is in my fire. I put several of these big globs of pitch in the branches that I was using, and those, like I said, are going to burn and burn and burn, and they're going to get everything else burning real nice. And as we walk back down to where I built my fire, you see that pitch has ignited in there, and everything's sitting there now burning nice and hot. Okay, I'll turn you guys around here. Okay guys, so that's basically it. You know, how to build a basic reflective fire. Dig out a little dish inside of it to get you a nice bed of coals going. All of the heat is going to be reflecting back off these rocks right towards me as I sit here on this log and make myself some lunch and some hot cocoa. And you know, up under the trees, as I said, you don't want to gather anything off the ground, at least not to start with. You want to go for those dry little twigs that you hear snap when you break them, that are hanging from underneath the trees. And globs of pitch thrown in there is just great to get things burning. And once you get it going and you get a big bed of coals in there and stuff, you can throw some damp wood from the ground on there and actually keep your fire burning longer. I will do that later. But basically, guys, that's how to build a reflective fire and in a nutshell. And thanks again for tuning in to Ochako Bushcraft. Guys, enjoy yourself out there.